Hi, this is Patrick Henry, the CEO of GroGuru. I'm talking today with Nich Kenny. I've known Nick for a couple years now. He is the owner and agriculture consultant at NPK Ag. Nick is a registered professional engineer with a broad agriculture background. He's worked with a number of our customers, and he's done on-site crop production and agronomy, water resource, energy, environmental design, project management, on-farm research. His specific professional expertise includes center pivot irrigation systems and subsurface drip irrigation systems. And he's got comprehensive field and production and produce crop system experience, as well as on-farm energy management. So thanks for taking some time to talk with us today, Nick.
Hey, Patrick, thank you for the opportunity. Thanks for the introduction.
You bet, man. So let's just kind of jump into it. In your experience, how important is soil monitoring in the optimization of crop yield, crop quality, energy efficiency, water efficiency?
Yeah, you bet. Great question. The real principle is you can't manage what you can't measure. And historically speaking, soil moisture has been an entity where we've known it's there. We've known it's been important to store and bank water to get you through periods of time where your irrigation system maybe can't keep up. But over the last, I'd say, 10 to 12 years, as technologies have become more useful, I've transitioned to where I think monitoring soil water is mandatory in terms of its level of importance for not just maximizing water use efficiency, which is one parameter, but also maximizing your crop, making sure that you are managing the crop to its needs. Soil moisture monitoring is more than valuable. It's mandatory at this point in time, mostly because we can do it, and the information that it gives us is just so crucial.
Cool. So how long have you been involved in the use of soil moisture probes and monitoring?
Yeah, so if we want to go back to like the analog days of pulling cores and whatnot with an oak field probe, wearing those out, it's 20 plus years now. So at this point, it's more than half of my life I've been doing that. In terms of what we consider commonly or currently the soil moisture probes, probably 12 plus years.
Okay,
like that.
Cool. Can you tell us a little bit about what you see as the primary benefits for farmers in using the GroGuru permanent installation soil monitoring system, especially for broadacre row crops, for field crops?
Yeah, so this is a good point, maybe a little bit more background. One of the caveats historically for all of soil moisture monitoring to get into the farmer's hands, it's been always cumbersome. It's been difficult to extract the data. It's been difficult to use the information. It's been difficult to put the information into play because you really didn't know what you were managing to. The GroGuru has built on a foundation, I think, that's been developed over the years of just making progress to where the information is something that's useful to the end user, the grower. So what the GroGuru with the permanent install allows, it allows off-season monitoring, which to me has been one of the missing links. It allows full in-season monitoring from pre-plant through germination, all the way through harvest, so you can track water needs for the entire duration of the crop. The delivery has been seamless in a way that a person can use that information, not just to measure and benchmark totals, but to be able to track trends of growth cycles. Like, for example, currently we're looking at, I'll just take one example, Texas High Plains. It's the end of June. It's our most demanding period of the year for water use in corn. We are able to track what water extraction is. And so I'm looking at this from hundreds of miles away, and I can look at the chart at the extraction rates of water in the top 2 feet and say, this is a good looking crop, and make a phone call to the farmer and say, what does the crop look like? And he says, this is my best crop of corn I've got. And I can tell that because the soil moisture sensor, specifically in this case, GroGuru, is showing me the extraction rates. And it's been over the last 2 weeks on that, it's been showing me the extraction rate has increased. And it we talk about stepping, or we talk about extraction intervals during the day versus a resting period at night. And what I can see is that the steps during the day are substantial. And for me, that's a good sign because transpiration equates to growth. So if I'm making it through the last 2 weeks of June, which has a tremendous amount of abiotic stress, and I'm drawing water through the crop progressively through the profile, I know that I've got a plant in the field that's healthy and vibrant. And so that's the type of thing that a probe allows me to do.
Cool.
The other thing I might add,
like if you take a step back and you're in the Western Corn Belt in particular, including Texas Panhandle, where you've got a ton of experience, a lot of these guys are what they call deficit irrigators. So they may use, 20% plus of their irrigation budget before they even put crop in the ground. Can you talk a little bit about that, the importance of kind of filling the soil profile? And with competitive alternatives, you don't have probes in the ground during that period of time. With GroGuru, you can actually, like you said, monitor that and manage it because the probes are there year round.
Yeah, you bet. So if we talk about deficit irrigation, that typically is going to imply either a regulatory or a capacity limited ability to apply water. Okay. And what you end up with is a period during the season where the crop demands more water than you can physically apply. In the Texas Panhandle, like much of the West, it is capacity limited. It's not regulatory limited. So even if you had permission to apply the water, you don't have the capacity to do it. So what you have to do is strategically bank and fill the soil profile prior to getting to that critical management point where the tables turn, where you can apply more. At some point in the season, you get to where you can't apply enough to keep up. If you have a number of inches of water stored in the soil profile, when you hit that period, the plant just keeps on chugging. At the end of June is typically where we're stepping into that. And that's what I'm looking at now, is we've stepped through what our capacity is, and we're now exceeding capacity with water extraction on a daily basis. But in the bottom 4 feet of my soil profile, I've got 100% water stored. And that storage came during the off season. One, through slight snowfall events, another through precipitation in the off season. And in some particular cases, if you've been able to manage it during the off season like we did this year, you can have an application of pre-water in a period where you've got less irrigation demand. So for example, the months of January or February or March, when the evaporative stresses are really low and where the strains on the wells are really low, you can strategically put on really deep applications of water without evaporating a whole bunch of it and store that in the soil for use at the time when you really need it. And that's exactly the strategy that a permanently installed probe gives you that information to meet, whereas an in-season probe, although that information is really valuable, it doesn't answer all those questions. So I'll give you a specific example. This year in the Texas Panhandle, rainfall during the off season was limited. It was shorter than needed, if you were. In a rotational crop where we had corn following cotton, our cotton crop aggressively extracted water at the end of last year, and we had enough room to essentially store in the range of 8 inches worth of soil water during the off season to fill up the profile. We did not get 8 inches worth of precipitation. We knew we would need that much water to have an effective corn crop. And so we elected late in the off season to apply 2.5 inches of pre-water. That water will count against our budget, but that's an application that we knew we would not be able to apply during July, but we could apply in February and March, and in this case, even as late as April. And so we made the strategic decision to do that. And I think that's the right decision to do in many years. From a water conservation standpoint, I'm going to say that that's not always the best strategy. And so having a probe out there allows you to say, this is a year when I want to apply a little bit of water, or this is a year where I've already got water banked and I do not need to apply it. And I think that's a very, very important piece of information that a permanently installed probe answers that we've never had answers to before.
That's cool. So let's kind of switch gears a little bit. And how have you found the GroGuru system to install and use in your experience compared to like competitive alternatives?
What's nice about the market for these soil moisture probes is that historically it's been a service, and so the farmer hasn't really had to worry too much about the install. GroGuru is like that. We identify the points, generally the areas, and like a thief in the night, you turn around and the probe's in. Since it is permanently installed and it's a two-piece system, we have had to harvest around it, we've had to spray around it, and that's probably where you're getting to with the management. And it's untethered, so essentially we pull the receiving unit out. I get confused whether that's the fox or the badger or which side of it is, but we pull the receiving unit out, do the field passes through it, stand that receiving unit back up, and we're in business. And there's been zero glitches on the software end of it. When I look at the results, which I'm mostly interested in, the delivery on the web page, I can't tell a difference. The information's just always there. And I presume there's a logging interval, there's algorithms that on your side you've been working with to fill in those gaps.
Correct.
Me being an end user, I don't see those gaps, so I'm happy with that.
That's awesome. And then as an ag consultant, with many customers, how do you like the GroGuru software and user interface kind of from a management standpoint?
I love it. It's familiar to me. It's an improvement over what some have been, and that one of the benefits that I like from my point of view, and this is probably just a very small percentage of your market, is that I have one login, and then the people who have given me access, it's a quick phone call and I get access to those probes through my login. So I've got an entire profile of who I work with. And so that's really, really useful. And it's pretty seamless. One thing I do like, there's a new version of software that I've been working with for about the last week. I like that it's intuitive as a web browser. I can click back and it takes me right back to the stage I was before. Instead of having to undo and cycle back and then progress forward, I basically can end up right back where I was. And so it's expedited. We had talked before we got on air about a limited internet connection with this interview, for example. Occasionally I find myself in limited internet connection areas. This last iteration of software is faster than any of the probe software I've historically used too, which to me is very nice. It clicks through quickly.
Yeah. Farmers really love that kind of speed of access to, especially on the mobile device, because if you're in the field and you got a punch list of things you got to do, the last thing you're going to do is wait for downloads. So it's definitely got that feedback as well. So there are other kind of key things based on your experience that you'd like our audience to hear about, with your experience with GroGuru, or just kind of the importance of, soil moisture monitoring and irrigation management relative to farming?
One thing that I have liked is, the credibility of somebody bringing you up to speed with monitoring devices. When you come from an area where you're looking at, say, inches of water as your currency or as the value of it, one of the best tools for me to learn and understand how to use soil moisture monitoring was an agronomy group that had some skill set helping me interpret what the data meant. So it took me a while, but I came off of the hard and fast of values to trends. And I think having someone like David Sloan help with that is invaluable. He's been helpful with me, and I know he's a principal with your group. I think that's really useful. That agronomy support to get you up to speed with understanding what you're looking at is completely priceless. So I'm glad for that. Some other things is, as you get shorter in water, the ability to manage every last input of water is so crucial. And having these probes that allow you to know whether I need to be focusing on duration, whether I need to be focusing on depth of applied water, quicker versus longer passes, these type of probes give you that immediate feedback. And these are things that decisions this year, it seems like they've been focusing on. I get a lot of questions from guys saying, do I speed up or do I slow down? Do I put on more frequently or less frequently? Or how do I manage this fixed amount of water? What I've been able to see is that you can, with very quick feedback and confidence, say, this is my strategy that's working. This is what I need to stick to. Or this strategy is not working. I need to depart from it and find something else. Historically speaking, we've found that longer durations, longer intervals with deeper applied depths seems to work in areas with high abiotic stresses. That's somewhat counterintuitive, but the probes give a user with some certain confidence, the confidence that this is the decision I need to be making on my field.
Yeah, that brings up kind of an interesting point. I'd like your perspective on it. With the competitive alternatives with the annual install removal model, I mean, you basically have that 4-week window after crop emergence to get the probes in the ground. Then you have to go through a few wetting cycles for them to be able to be calibrated. Then you actually have to get them out of the ground, 4 weeks prior to harvest. Those windows that are covered by a permanent probe, are those like really essential windows that, that you found based on using GroGuru?
Well, I will tell you, as somebody who had used more traditional probes historically, I would have said no, probably not. What experience with having them installed for like 18 months now? Not even that. One full cycle. Absolutely. We made at least 3 management decisions on certain fields this season before the traditional probes were installed. And I found myself being really antsy waiting for some competitor probes to be installed. I've got a unique opportunity. I've got some research type duties where we get to do some side-by-sides. And that's afforded me a luxury of seeing some of the benefits and the pitfalls. I was not expecting this particular season to be this happy with having permanent installed probes post-planting, pre-germination, and shortly following germination. I mean, to me, it was shifting the way that I was managing, where before I typically hadn't been making those management decisions. So in terms of its value, absolutely. But I look at it, I mean, maybe as a person that's third party and not so much of an advertisement, what I look at is that this is the progression of the probe, which is exciting. It's been a useful tool, and now it's even more useful.
Yeah, fantastic. Well, this has been great. Really appreciate your time, Nick. I think this can be super informative for all the folks out there that are listening in. And really, again, great talking with you. It's been a while since we've seen each other with everything going on in the world. But it looks like you're doing well, and really appreciate your time.
You mentioned a point, given the point in time with COVID. I've been doing a lot of off-site work without some pivot monitoring, without probe data, without all of these things. I literally would be blind in this process. I don't feel blind. I mean, the off-site input that I've been able to see and share has been it's been crucial during this period. I feel more confident in managing with distance now than I ever have. Nothing beats being in the field, don't get me wrong, but the tools are really helping to close that gap.
Terrific. That's great. Well, thanks, Nick. Again, this is Patrick Henry, the CEO of GroGuru. I'm talking to Nich Kenny. Nick is a professional engineer, expert on irrigation agronomy, and really great to have him with us today.
Thanks, Patrick.
Thanks, Nick.